So Doug's Way here. Behind me you can see there's some panels hanging in the air. I showed a few videos back setting the poles, so I finally got around this weekend. It cooled off enough and we were able to get the panels all on. So I've been slowly working at getting the frame all together, and I'll go through that process. So some of this video covers reconstruction of certain parts of the mount that were damaged in the tornado. So you know, that's if you're into fabrication, you know, or you want to build your own mount, you know, you kind of have an idea how this is done. Really, you could build one of these pretty easy. Basically, you just want long I-beam pieces. You don't need all these sections, and basically you could source your rails. The mechanism here where it pivots isn't that complicated, so you know, and there are some parts available you can buy. So enjoy the video. If you like it, hit the like button to subscribe. I got more content coming. At the end of this video, I'll do some cost breakdown on what it cost me here. So thanks for watching. So what I'm showing here is the adjusting screw and the back plate for the MT Solar mount. The front part of it is about a 3/4 round piece that goes around the outside of your pole, and then this bolts on the back side, and this is your adjusting screw, and it's got a pivot here. Basically, these mounts have been through a tornado, and the failure point is the screw jacks and this piece. This is one that failed catastrophically here. As you can see, it ripped loose. There's a slot in there, and they used a water jet to cut it. And obviously that was a failure point because the new mount I have doesn't have that in there, so they changed that. I'm going to change it so it's kind of gusseted more this way and down to the top edge. It'll be a lot stronger. I might even add a gusset going to the side. We'll see when I get it welded up here. But I got 2 of these to do, and then I can start getting my these mounted on the poles and then start putting my array together. So been kind of holding off on that. It's been hot and humid here, and I had some other stuff to do here in the shop, like hanging inverters and stuff. So that's where I'm at today. I'll get these done and then start getting that done on a nice cool day. So later. So I got the first one done here. It's still cooling off. You can see the smoke rolling out of it, but I did end up adding a gusset here on the other side. Basically, it's the cutoff piece that come off this other end down here, and you know me, I ain't throwing nothing away, so I'm going to use it. So I can't put it on this side, the long side, because this is the side that the screw adjuster has to go on. So get the other one done, a little cleanup, a little paint, and I'll be on my way. Oh, it's been sitting out here for about a month. I got those back brackets done and started putting the frame here together. So basically all you're running into is you have 2 long I-beam sections and some square tubing here and a center pivot, and that's that bracket I showed that I was fixing. Okay, and that's where your adjuster will go. I still have to make the pipe that goes from that hole there over to this side, and that's where my adjuster will attach to. So basically it comes in 7.5 foot long sections, and these were single pole mounts. So basically what they did is they had just this section here, and then they had a wing on that end and a wing on this end. Well, I didn't need that, so I just took the 2 wings and welded them back together. They were 3 feet 9 inches, so 3.75 feet long, and so then I just welded them back together to make a piece that's 7.5 feet long. So that gives me my 15 foot spacing for my poles. So I just got them chained up here. I'm not putting the panels on the ground here. I've decided I'm not doing that. I did that on the other mount, and running that up with chain hoist, it takes a little bit, and I'm going to have 20 panels on this mount, not 16, even those are bigger, but they were pretty heavy. So I decided I'm just going to get the frame all done. I don't have nothing tightened down. As you can see, you know, it's wavy and everything else, but I got to straighten it all out. I'll show how I do that later. But I'm going to put the rails on here and then raise it on up to the top, and then I can tilt it down and put my solar panels on. I've got a forklift with a long scaffolding for it, so I can do it that way. All right, later. So basically I run a pair of Mason's lines here. That way I can adjust it horizontally and vertically. If you look, it's probably, I got it right here on the flange, and you can see the space here. Basically I'll eye it, and then I'll get the tape measure out and start measuring. So how you adjust it is you run these a little loose, and then you adjust these screws here. And just keep adjusting until you get straightened out, both vertically and horizontally. So nothing else is tightened up on the mount. None of that gets tightened up until this step has been done. So I got all those all set, and now I'm putting an X here on my mason's line, and then I'm going to measure to my bars here and here, and then I'll measure that distance and make sure there ain't a twist here. And then I can tighten, as I'm going along, I can tighten these bolts up on the end, and that'll give me my frame where it's all straight with no twist in it. So I got these 4 pipes cut here. This is Schedule 80 2-inch pipe, which makes it about 2 3/8 OD, and that's what it looks like on my screw adjusters, the end they have on it. So I do have to weld a nut on the inside of the end, and I gotta make a plate for that first, and anyway, then I'll weld the nut to the plate and then weld it on in there, and it's got to be flush on this end. So yep, 3.75 feet long, and that's a pretty common number around here, so I'll get these done. So here's my solution for my plate and my pipe. Basically, I had some 2-inch stock, some short pieces laying around, and I cut it off at 1 3/4 on the long side or short side in my bandsaw. But before I cut it, I drilled a 1/4 inch pilot hole here. Just used a hole saw to get me an outline here quick. Bored the center out then to 1 1/164. I'm using a 5/8 bolt, so I push the nut on in there using my shop press, and I leave it a little proud. And the reason for that is it'll cut down on the grinding in the last 2 steps. So basically I cut it off with my big bandsaw, and then after I get the nut pressed in, I'm cutting these corners off using my portal bandsaw, and then finishing it off with a grinder, and basically end up with something like this. Now the reason I want it proud, and I'm going to weld it on this side and on the back side, and I'll have to run a thread chaser through it. But the reason I want it proud like this is when I weld it inside the pipe, I won't have to grind as much weld off here to make it flush, and even when I weld the nut in here, I won't have to grind as much so it's flush. I had 8 of these to do because I have 4 pipes, so yeah, it's taking me a little while. But anyway, that's what the solution was that I came up with. So a little background on this mount. What it was is these were single pole mounts. They were in a 3x5 landscape pattern, and a tornado had come through and had damaged the panels, and the guy had collected off the insurance and then put in a whole new array, and had the salvage for sale, and I ended up picking up the mounts off him for $4,000, which was pretty cheap because it was about $20,000 worth of mount here. So but yeah, I wanted to make it a double pole here, so that's why I welded the centers together. And this was going to be the size originally. It was going to be, I was going to do it in a 4x5 landscape pattern, so that'd be 5 rows high and 4 columns across. But after getting it here bolted together, I've decided on this end here, I have to turn here when I move snow here in the winter, and that was part of the reason I didn't want it any longer. But I made sure I spaced it away from the shed far enough and this and that, so that way it would fit. But anyway, I've decided I'm going to do a 5x5, but actually I'm only going to do a 1 column on the end here. On this end here, we'll only have 4 panels. I'll leave the bottom one off, so that way I can get around there easy enough when I'm moving snow or have to drive by here. So yeah, it gets a little tight back here in the backyard. I got a lot of stuff going on, and but anyway, right now I'm getting ready to put the pipes in that I made and the screw adjusters and get my wings on, then I can start putting my rails on. So the pipes I made, I got those installed here, and the screw adjusters all installed, and there's a slight tilt to it. I mean, I could maybe turn it down a little bit more, but I bought 2 brand new adjusters right from MT Solar for replacements. They haven't been listed in their parts section if you're looking for a jack like that. They're pretty good jack, you know. I thought about making something, but really by the time I figured my time and materials and all that, I said, well, for $235 I'll just buy a pair of them. So got that sitting there, and then it puts a slight tilt on it here, but I did get my rails all on here, so I got them all spaced in there. I just got to start leveling it out, run a string on it, so that'll be the next step. So I got a Mason's line set up here, and basically what I'm doing is I'm setting my length this way, and also height. I just screwed a bracket in the end, and you want to adjust your end up so it's slightly high on each end, and that way you can line up your rails here on the bottom for both length and height. You know what I mean? You don't have to be exact, I mean, but you know, it's less than an eighth of an inch or something. The flatter you get it here, then your panels will line up more. So then in the back, I got another one I had in there, and just use that one for setting height. All right, so that way they're pretty flat all the way across. So being there to use mounts, I had some trouble with the bolts turning inside the rail on two of them, so I'm gonna end up cutting the nuts off of them and doing something different with those. But other than that, it went pretty good. Basically I'm at the point now where I'm going to be raising it up here at some point and get it anchored at the top. I got to cut a plate for the top of the post yet, and that will get caulked down to the top of the post, and there's a bolt then that sits across the top so they can't slide down once you get them all the way up. So what I got here is a cap for the poles. It's 8 5/8 OD. Empty solar. They'll send out a bracket if you buy their mount, and it'll have a piece of square tubing in here, and then you got a long piece you slide in there, and then you hang your chain hoist off that to raise it. But I'm going to raise mine a little different, so I decided I need that. And those brackets didn't come. He must have took the poles, left them in there, and I didn't get any of that. So well, that's part of the deal. You get to use a mount. But 8 5/8 diameter. It's about 3/16 thick. To cut it, I just used my cutting torch. I went out back, found a brake rotor that had a hat that was 8 5/8 or 8.5 inch OD, and that's just about perfect because your torch ain't gonna fit in there tight. And I just used a cutoff wheel to cut the rest of the rotor off, and I'm gonna keep this because I got two more pole mounts yet, and might need it someday to cut some more caps. So anyway, later. So I'm going to leave this one panel off on the end here. I just cut those rails off. I knew how long I needed for 4 panels, plus on the end here you've got your hole down there, and that takes 3/4 of an inch, so you have one of those on each end. The bolt itself that goes in between the two panels on these Iron Ridge take 3/8 of an inch, and there's 4, so basically that's another 1.5 inches. So basically I had to add 3 inches besides my panel width, which was 41 inches, so it was like 167 total. It was 164 plus 3, so 167. Made sure I added an inch on each end, and that left me with a cutoff piece of approximately 38 inches long, because these rails are 205 inches long. So that way I didn't need extension on this end. Now the trouble you're going to run into on any of these Iron Ridge rails is they're going to come a maximum of 17 feet, which is 205 inches. So they sell a splice kit, and of course they tell you not to use it on a cantilever, but I'm only like 6 inches long here. I used my 38-inch long pieces, cut it up in the bandsaw, and so your splice is inside. I run 4 screws on this side, and I did run 4 screws in the bottom. These maybe ain't needed, but you know, I said, oh, what the heck, you know. Stainless, of course, which brings us to another subject. On these rails, they run a stainless 3/8 bolt here with a flange nut, and when you go to adjust these, what I've been having trouble with is galling on the threads. So when I had to replace the bolt, I've been using blue Loctite on them. Maybe somebody out there's got a better solution, but yeah, you know, you'll put your mason's line on, start adjusting the elevation here up and down, you know, to get them all lined up, and then you run into where it galls here, and then you end up taking a whole piece off. Sometimes you got to cut the nut off or whatever, or sometimes you can get it loose enough you can slide it all the way out the end, you know. But those bolts, they're galled, they're seized up, they're not going to move. So basically what I'm doing here is now I got my extensions on, and I have a bracket on that end, and then I'm basically just coming down here, and this rail here isn't fastened down yet. I went to the end here and get my end set for going this way, and then basically I'm adjusting my height up and down. So this one I got adjusted, and then now I'll just line up my second one there with my string and get that one tightened down. So yeah, been an interesting morning so far, but anyway, that worked out pretty good. I just cut my rails, I think, at 169 inches, and that left me 4 panels. They're all right with 250 watt panels, but you know, as the panel size has gotten bigger here, Iron Ridge has yet to step up to the plate and make their rails longer, you know. I mean, you're talking a 370 watt panel, it's 41 inches wide, and you know, if you try putting 5 of them in a row, good luck, it ain't gonna work. You know, you're gonna need an extension on the end, but with this short length I have here, I'm not too worried. Now, if it was couple feet long, yeah, that'd be a whole different story, but this will work really well. I mean, like I said, I only need to add 6 inches. Somebody had mentioned on the do-it-yourself forum, and I told them, I said, this is what I plan on doing. So, and of course somebody raised the question, you know, well, you know, geez, you know, you can't put on the cantilever, and I'm like, you're only adding 6 inches on the end, and it's actually doubled in this area. So I said, I'm not too worried, but just something to keep in mind, you know, if you use the Iron Ridge, you know, and you're going to need another couple feet out here, yeah, you're going to have to come up with something better than, you know, than just the splice probably. The other mount over there has Tamarack, and believe me, I prefer the Tamarack. So if you got a choice between, if you're just building your own mount or whatever, you have a choice between Tamarack or Iron Ridge, buy the Tamarack. MT Solar sells all their new mounts now with Tamarack, and really I like them. I didn't have any of these problems here. On theirs, on your main rail, they just have a bracket that goes around here, and then they have one slot and it moves up and down, so you can adjust your whole rail up and down. You're not doing any of this crap with 2 of them, and you know, and then it rocks. See, look at this one, you know, it's there, and then look, it's above the slot there, but you know, I haven't adjusted it yet. But you know, I tell you, the Tamarack was a lot nicer, and their splices are structural. They'll tell you that, so that's not an issue. They got a deal or a splice that screws a bolt, and they have a piece that slides in here, and then they got a bolt that screws in the top. I think 2 on each side of your splice, and believe me, that thing ain't given. So, I've been painting my covers for the top of my poles, and I'm getting ready to start raising this here pretty soon. So maybe by the end of this weekend, I only get the weekend to work on it. So, you know, I've been kind of busy. I kind of come out here in the evening and mess around for an hour and got like these splices done, you know, and stuff. But we're moving right along. I've been working on the inverter setup too. So later. So on these rails I cut off, I just slid my angle all the way up, and we're here, it's going to attach here. I'm just going to have to drill a hole on this side and this side, like those 2 holes there, and I can finish mounting it here to the I-beam, and I'll have this part done. I've got them set here. I ran my string up front here across the top of the other rails, and so I got that all set for elevation, and then I set my length, of course, with the other one. So yep, everything's good to go here. As soon as I get these holes drilled, and I'll be moving on later. So I'm using a pair of come-alongs here. I'm about halfway up. I know I got a safety chain on there, so you know, as you work your way up, keep advancing it up a link, you know, in case something breaks. You don't want anybody getting killed. So it's probably, I don't know, 15-20 minutes I made up this far. So later. So yeah, I'm about as far as I can get here with come-alongs. Yeah, I could rehook maybe a little higher, but I put the handles on, I'm gonna start tipping it, and then maybe I can get the forklift in there and finish raising it. So you can tip it about so far here before the adjuster pipe in the bracket will start hitting the pole. So hopefully I got enough room in here and I can get it raised on up. Well, this is my Massey 202 work bull. They made these back in the late 50s. Now they had backhoes on them, made forklifts out of them, all that. Pretty good unit. I've had it, I don't know, 25 years I suppose. Bought it used and used to belong to a lumberyard in town, but it has a double mast on it and it's kind of handy because you can get up high with it. I got it so you can drop the front mast off real easy and put regular tines on it. What it's got on the front mast was these concrete block tines, that's what they use to make concrete block walls, buildings, and they just lift the box up that way. But I just got a piece of heavy square tubing there blocked up against there, and I put a couple welding clamps on to hold it as I'm raising it up until I get contact, and you raise it up, I don't know, 4 inches, and then rehook your safety chain, and then raise up another 4 inches, or so, and then you got to move over to the other pole. But I'm just about to the top, so won't be long. So anyway, later. So it's a few hours later here. Yeah, a neighbor stopped by, and it was getting hot out here before, and so I was gone for a couple hours. But this is the second pole. I got to raise all the way to the top. So put some caulk there. And then I'll put my plate in here. Hang on a moment. There's my plate. And then I got to tighten these set screws here a little bit to bring that back and lower it down. But anyway, this part will be done, and tomorrow I'll be hanging panels. First row's on. I put these brackets on before I raised it. Measured in 1 inch on each end and put a string across there, and then just set all the other ones. So then when I want to put a panel on, and I put a welding clamp here, and that way I can loosen this up, and then we set our panel on there and then tighten it back down. So anyway, I got the official loads tester helping today. So this is what it looks like when she's all the way tipped about vertical. So long ways up there at the top. So later. So it's been about an hour, and stopped to take a break and have a cup of coffee. Good day to put them on, no wind. We got half the panels on in about an hour, so getting hot, taller, so we're getting there. But later. So I'm reshooting some footage here. This is what it looks like all together. It's tilted here now at 40 degrees off horizontal, which looks more steep than that to me, but anyway, gives you a good idea what it looks like. I can take you around here the back side and show you. She's pretty good size, I can just barely touch the bottom here, so just barely. But yeah, this is what it looks like on the back side. She's pretty massive, you're looking, there's a lot there. So anyway, later. Well, it took about 2 hours, and we were done. My daughter came up, and she ran the forklift, so my wife and I could just keep putting panels on, and I'm glad we got it done when we did. There's no breeze today, and she was getting warm. Right now I'm working on checking polarity, make sure they're all correct, and then I'm going to tilt it down a little bit, and I'm actually going to watch the shade here and just see how it shades the array, because I know there's going to be some shade on it late afternoon, and then I'll decide how I'm going to do my series strings. So later. You guys probably wondering why I got these old barrels laying around. Well, this is what I use them for. I even got one up here on the lift I'm using right now. So yep, secret's out. Everybody that uses old barrels have them lay around in an array for setting tools on and everything. You know, the deal is I'm getting older and I don't like bending over all the time. You know what they say, work smarter, not harder. So to check polarity here, I've got some MC4 pigtails. They were off something, these were off my truck camper. I hardwired those and eliminated the MC4s, but anyway, I cut the locks off it so that way they don't lock on. And then I check up my multimeter, and then I write it up there with magic marker, and that way I know everything's correct. So never know. You're your own quality control. You know, you buy these panels cheap, you know, for like these here panels, these NE Solar 370 watt, you know, that was $2,000 for the pallet load shipped in. And you know, if you're taking the residential tax credit, that really gets you down to about 10 cents a watt, you know, so that's pretty cheap. But you know, you never know. You might get a panel that's got the pigtails on it wrong, the MC4s on it wrong, and you know, you'll hook it in your string and then stand there and wonder why in the heck you're not getting much for output. So I always double check everything, and that way I know, and you end up with a lot less mistakes and headaches that way. So be your own quality control. Later. So when I'm checking these here, I just plug my lead in there without a lock and clip my wire on, and then I go do the other one. I don't touch both wires at the same time. I'm not interested in getting the shock up here. I'm here by myself, you know. If you have them hooked in series, you know, you could get a jolt, boy, and I'll tell you what, you might get the surprise of your life. You know, as a kid, I grew up on the farm. You touch the electric fencer, you know, it ain't much fun. So although my grandpa, he could grab a hold of the electric fence and just hang right on, and I don't know how he could do her, but they must have been tougher back in the day. So speaking of grandpa, he was interesting. When I was a kid, he told me how he lost some of the fingers, and I think maybe that's why the shock didn't bother him. He was missing most of the fingers on one hand, you know. He lost them. One of them I know he lost up in Alaska doing work for the government during World War II. Somebody dropped an oil drum on it and cut her right off. So, yep, you know, I'm kind of a safety conscious kind of guy here. Well, about 15 years ago, I cut this one off. Second time, if you've been watching close in the videos, you'll see it. I cut it off once and they sewed it back together, and 3 years later, I took her off for good. There was no sewing her back together the second time. So, let me tell you, they don't grow back either. And it ain't too bad. I'm used to it, but sometimes you got to use your left hand to screw something on or do this or that. It's not quite so handy, you know, missing that longer finger there. So be careful out there. All right. So the other reason I'm up here, while I'm checking polarity here, I need to tighten up these set screws for these collars. You know, they slide in and you adjust your side-to-side plate, you know, just keep it from moving from one side to the other, you know. There's right here on top of your pole, it's your center pivot. So I do know they offer a grease kit, and I'll tell you why. It goes in the bottom here, and what they're doing is they're greasing that shaft here. It's not shaft, big pipe, but they're greasing that pivot, and the reason why is there's some play there, you know, because your adjuster's so close to your pivot. So what it does in the wind there, you'll hear it when you go by, it'll squeak, you know. And I guess their solution was to put a grease zerk on the bottom, and then you grease it and then it don't squeak. Well, I really ain't addressing the issue. What the issue is that play is in there, and I'm going to cover that in a future video on how I'm going to fix that. I need to do the other one. I haven't got it done yet, but it'll fix that squeak, plus provide I'm going to add another support in here, and that way it won't be wiggling on there. And the second of all is you don't have to worry about your adjuster breaking. So, you know, I want it so I can, you know, get around it good with like the other one with the mower or something, you know, and I don't want nothing that's obtrusive in the way. So I've been throwing that around here now for over a year, and one of these days I'll get it done. But I'll cover that in a different video, and who knows how long before I get around to getting that done. But later. So I don't know if you can see it, but I noticed when I was putting panels on. So, you know, I've got my ends flush, and the top one's flush, but in the middle here we've got just a slight step. And the reason for that was the rails must have got bent in the tornado on some of these here. And of course they were all in a stack, so you know you don't have them all together. But these here were good. But on this one end here, and I don't know if it's going to matter, but you know, I'm not too crazy about going in there adjusting due to that galling problem with the bolts. But I do know the one down here, I've got blue Loctite on those bolts, so those may be all right. This other one, yeah, it could be questionable. So waiting on the sun here. I'm probably gonna go have some ice cream. The heck with it, and I'll be back later. So let's put some figures together here. I spent $2,000 on 31 panels. That deal was shared on the Do-It-Yourself Solar Forum, and I highly recommend joining there. Great bunch of people. We share a lot of ideas, troubleshoot other people's problems, things like that. But someone shared a deal there with 31 panels. These are any solar, 370 watt, and it was $2,000 shipped to my door. I think there was a credit card processing fee of, you know, 50 bucks or something. You know, I didn't need lift gate. I have a forklift unload, of course. So I used 24 of the panels, so you know, that's $1,500. The used mount was $4,000, and I only used half of it, so you know I got $2 grand there. I did spend the money on the jacks, you know, that was $600 by the time I got them here to my door. Cement was $1,350, and the 2 poles were $500 a piece. Yeah, I had some miscellaneous fabrication, but really that was all just drop off of other projects, so that really didn't cost me anything but my time. So, you know, I ended up, let's say, with, you know, $7,000 to $8,000 by the time I get it wired in here. It's gonna cost me about $1 grand by the time I trench it all in, run my wire. I got some other stuff I gotta buy, like SPDs, you know, but that's pretty reasonable. You know, if you were taking the residential tax credit, you know, you're looking at about $6,500 it would cost you for 8,800 and some watts of power, you know, just under 9,000 watts. So yeah, that's a pretty good deal. I mean, it can be done on the cheap, you know. That's been part of this deal. I want to get by as cheap as possible, even though I am writing this off of my business as a business expense. But I also get closer to retirement, and I don't know how much longer I'll be working. So you know, that's part of the deal. I want to get my costs back, you know, as soon as I can. But you know, if you're taking a residential tax credit, you know, like I said, you have $6,500 in it. You know, that's pretty cheap, you know, because, you know, you're looking at 20 to 25 years, you know, and I mean, boy, you can generate electricity pretty cheap that way. So basically we run our house off grid off of about 8,000 watts of power, or solar. So, you know, that's a good deal. So those of you looking at it, you know, come and join the Do-It-Yourself Solar Forum. Get some ideas, you know, maybe it ain't right for you, but one never knows. So anyway, thanks for watching. Catch some rays, and we'll see you later.